Hey, Mr. Lohofs, this is the report on the Station nightclub fire. It was a fire that took place in 2003, February 20th in New Jersey. So the building characteristics from the report looked like it was a Type 5 construction. It was a building that had been continuously renovated throughout the years, starting in like the 1940s. So on the night of the fire, the band Great White was playing. The building was occupied by approximately 448, 450 people per the NISTA report. It was rated to hold 400. On the night of the fire, sounds like it started just after 2300. Pyrotechnics were lit off on the stage behind the band, and the pyrotechnics ignited an acoustic foam that was in place by the owners to just help with acoustic quality. Foam was not fire rated. Fire took hold very quick. Looked like three fountains, two off the flanks, one straight up behind the band. Both flanks ignited. The foam took off very rapidly, producing a very thick, dark smoke. They quickly reached the ceiling and spread outward over the crowd. The initial ignition point to, I would say, the growth phase was only a matter of 5 or 10 seconds. Watching the videos and reading the reports, ongoers were rapidly overcome by the flames and smoke. Initially, it wasn't clear if it was part of the show or not, so it took probably 10 seconds for everyone to realize what was happening, that it wasn't part of the show. Then panic took over. Couple key points to highlight on the interior of the structure that led to being such a fatal fatality fire. There was no sprinkler systems, even though it per code should have had sprinkler systems, but just wasn't in place throughout the renovations. The main entryway into the dance floor entertainment room where ongoers were was a double door from the exterior into a single door into the main entertainment area leading up to the stage. Once the fire took hold and people began to panic, ongoers were not familiar with the layout of the building. There were fire exits, but they weren't adequately identified, and most of the ongoers didn't know where those exits were prior to the event happening. Upon the initial fire starting, 30-second window of dramatic chaos, smoke ensuing. The ongoers, audible fire alarms did trip in the building, signaling there was a fire, but the actual fire was radioed in by a police officer that was working the event that night. I believe the report stated that the first on-scene engine was there within just a few minutes, and by the time the first engine got on scene, they had a fully involved working structure fire. Going back to the hallway mentioned earlier, due to the double door exterior into a single interior door into the main passageway or entertainment area, ongoers, when they began to evacuate the structure, bottlenecked in that hallway corridor from the interior single door to the exterior double doors. In the panic of evacuating, they began to fall over and create a crush or a public crush issue. People became horizontal in the hallway and began to stack up, and then that blocked that egress point from there on. Reports sounded like there were other fire doors or fire exits that people were turned away from by the bouncers initially, saying it was for the band only. Nightclub also had a sunroom that had multiple glass windows on the front left side of the building, I believe. These windows began to break, and ongoers used those as an egress point. The Instead report stated that approximately a third of the ongoers there used those windows as a means of egress from the fire. Watching the videos and reading the report, really, it was only a small window of maybe 3 to 5 minutes to actually be able to escape before the interior conditions became so bad that your chances of making out of the structure were very slim, in my opinion. The second part to hit on is that the initial fire company showed up with one firefighter, one officer, declared a mass casualty incident. They couldn't get their apparatus really into the structure area to begin an initial attack due to the fact there was 100+ cars in the parking lot. Entry was inhibited by that, and then the outflow of ongoers into the parking lot, into the roadway, People that were injured were panicked, overwhelmed the initial two companies, trying to make an initial fire attack. Once they gathered themselves, they had 3 engines ladder at BC from the report. They tried to do life safety, got to the front door, found a wall of people, tried to pull people out of that choke point with little to no result. And by that time, the fire had gone through the roof, had taken complete hold of the structure. Interior conditions were too hazardous to make entry, and they didn't really have a good entry point at that time. Due to a failure of building code and just poor planning, honestly, the legal ramifications, the manager of the band and the 2 owners were all brought up on criminal charges, basically negligence and manslaughter charges for individuals that were incapacitated in the fire. From the report given and after action, most nightclubs decided to update their fire code after seeing the effect of the criminal charges and proceedings follow, with almost 100 people losing their lives due to basically negligence and poor planning. It was never determined whether pyrotechnics were authorized or unauthorized for the show. Nevertheless, they were used and got said result. So this is just kind of the recap of the Station nightclub fire. Again, 100-person fatality fire due to a lack of building code and regulation enforcement for the fire prevention. Yeah, appreciate it.